right, we have call to order here. Just to note that both councillors Martin Grant and Barbara Price were able to attend. So first item would be adoption of the agenda.
Second.
On adoption, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. We have a number of delegations here tonight. We'll start with Nick and Katie Brady, the homeowners of 600 Pritchard Road. They're there. Are you here just to answer any questions at this point? All right. If there are questions, then I would ask you to come forward to the podium, but I don't know if council has any questions. At the moment.
Straightforward.
All right, so you're off the hook for now. Your matter will come up here shortly. Then we have Lauren Lan regarding EVP 17-5. And Lauren, I understand perhaps your questions have been answered?
Okay.
All right. Moving right along, we'll get to Derek Jensen, McElhaney Consulting Services regarding DP 17.5. And no, not all his questions have been answered, so let's go.
Well, this is where we get bogged down.
Yeah. It should also be hopefully fairly straightforward. So,
Welcome, Derek.
thanks, Mayor and Council. So I won't go into an elaborate and detailed review of the development variance permit that's before you today. Staff's report is quite elaborate and detailed. This development variance permit pertains to variance to the cross-section of the proposed cul-de-sac road. That proposed cross-section is consistent with recently approved 1182 Lazo Road, recently or in process 1170. It's a variation from what was installed on Dakota Place in Lancaster, and it's a variation of the cross-section that was implemented for Rob Ave Phase 2. Essentially, the proposal is an extension off Beckton Drive to a cul-de-sac. The cul-de-sac variance pertains to very much the same as we did in Dakota Place for Lancaster Phase 7, is that the actual asphalt surfacing curb geometry is exactly the same as a standard town cul-de-sac requirement. The variation pertains to this 17.5 meter radius SRW, which would contain third-party electrical utilities. So the overall geometry of the cul-de-sac remains the same from the standard, thereby meeting the requirements of emergency service vehicles and such. I know that there was a few comments from local residents brought forward with respect to parking. Marvin was gracious enough to provide me a bit of background as to the parking coordination that's happened on Beckton Drive. What I can say is that, and Marvin has the statistics, and I'm sure he's going to provide those statistics as part of his presentation, but essentially we've allocated approximately somewhere between 4 and 8 parking spots for visitor parking. Let's call it on-street parking, beyond the 40 parking spots that are available for the 9 lots off-site. So total development, rough numbers would be somewhere between 44 and 47 parking spots for 9 lots. Beyond that, there is a variance permit application incorporation into the variance permit application is for the stormwater management plan. That plan was derived in association and per the terms of the Northeast Comox Stormwater Strategy, given the downstream stormwater constraints. That report is included in the application. I don't want to get into the details, but essentially we've been able to incorporate those very same strategies, design targets, specifications on this particular development in accordance with Northeast Comox Stormwater. Any questions?
That's okay, Grant.
Just have one question. Sorry, I can't see because all you see is Hugh's head there.
Okay.
And it's not very attractive from the back, just in case you were wondering. On your little parking kickouts there, they say on the report in here for 1 car. Can those be expanded so you could get 2 cars in?
Yes, in the most part. Yeah, and that's why I'm saying the variation
Right.
from 4 to 8 parking spots. Obviously, through the course of detailed design and working with staff, we'll finalize that parking geometry. Obviously, we want to not only meet the needs of the community, but also the requirements of the town of Comox. So.
Perfect. Thank you. Councilor Arnott.
Yeah, and to the planner, that back alley behind that, that's one way? That's only
Yes.
one way,
Yes,
so they won't be able to leave that cul-de-sac and go through that alley?
No, that's
Okay,
right.
good.
Any other questions? Oh, sorry, Councilor McKinney.
I'm not sure if it's a question for Derek or for planning, but was there concerns with this project that eventually what would happen to Beckton about being pushed through? There were some concerns I heard from some of the residents, I believe, about Beckton eventually
There
being
was,
pushed right through to Lazo Road.
Well, that's not happening.
No, the town has, so the town, Guthrie Road is a municipal road dedication in favor of the town of Comox. As an arterial road, residential access to it is discouraged, and Lazo Road remains a highways road. And again, for continuity of the Lazo Greenway, the expectation was not to create an access there either. So it's a straight cul-de-sac configuration off the Beckton Drive.
Thank you for answering that.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation. All right, we'll move on to the next delegation, which is Neil Banerjee and Don Cameron. They're in the back. There's Neil, I assume. And here regarding 1700 Balmoral. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Barry White, actually with Wednesday Architecture. Neil could not make it today, so
All right.
sends regrets. So we're here to present the new project at Balmoral, pardon me. And the site is, I don't know if there's a pointer here, but the site is quite familiar, I think, to everybody. Adjacent to the golf course. It was the site of a previous development permit for a 31-unit, 4-story building. We're here today to bring forward a slightly larger, but we think more compelling building, which is 45 units, so slightly larger, and with all underground parking. So we have 50 underground parking spaces. I don't know what just happened.
Sorry about that.
And a mixture of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. So we're very excited about this particular version of the project. We feel it's an improvement over the last version for a number of reasons. It is more contemporary design. It offers more units for the community, and is more suited to today's market environment for people wanting to move to Comox. So the site, again, is located with the shopping center on one side, the golf course on the other, and the existing 3 4-story apartment building. The statistics basically are that it's a 2.1 FAR building. It's approximately 62,000 square feet total floor area, 45 units. We have 50 underground parking spaces, 37 bike parking spaces proposed. It's the landscape plan, so we have a very rich landscape design. There's an arbor support that came along with the project to demonstrate which trees we are retaining. We're going to be retaining the 2 large trees on the front yard, so those 2 large trees will be retained. And elsewhere we're going to be replacing some of the trees that are not currently healthy, according to the arborist, and replacing with new healthy trees. Floor plans, one of the things we're bringing forward as part of this project is we have 5 adaptable housing units. So these are dedicated that can be transformed into handicap accessible very easily. They're designed for that, and they're all located on the main floor, so we have easy access. We have 3 typical floors, 2, 3, and 4, which are a mixture of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. And the top, which is the 5th floor, is set back even further and a much smaller footprint. So although the building is 5 stories, the top floor is significantly stepped back from the balance to reduce the sense of mass of the project. just some typical units, the 1-bedroom and the 2-bedroom units, the most common in the building. The elevations of the building, as I mentioned, there's a ground floor, 3 typical floors, and then the top floor is set back. And these are the side views. Building section, parking is below grade. Ground floor, 3 typical, and then the increased setback, which you can see on the 5th floor. So this is an image of the project from Balmoral. So you can see the underground access, or the access to the underground parking rather, which has a trellis feature. Richly landscaped front yard. The 4-story, the main mass of the building is a 4-story building, and as you can see from the image, the 5th floor is quite further back, so it's not very, there was an attempt to mitigate that as much as possible through the process. And here's a view looking the other way along Balmoral, so this is looking at it from the golf course, direction of the golf course, if you will. So shadow studies, so we run the shadow studies for the project. You know, yes, buildings do cause shadows. So shadows from the 3-story building will occasionally hit ours. Sometimes ours hits theirs. It's just sort of, it's hard to mitigate that too much. But with the massing reduced on the top floor, it at least reduces the shadow from that highest level, given that there was already a 4-story building approved here. The materials for the buildings, so we've got a combination of concrete, heavy timber, hardy panel, and it's a wood-like siding, which is actually not made of wood for maintenance reasons, so it's actually made out of vinyl, but it looks a lot like wood. So at the end of the day, we feel like the materials will give it a very rich place that feels like it's part of the local character, especially with the use of the heavy timbers. Yeah. And the overall design is contemporary, so I think we're using a more contemporary aesthetic than we did in the original design. For sure, that's deliberate. We think it makes a better offering to the community in this environment, in this market that we're living in. Just as a comparison, on the left-hand side, you can see the previous design. On the right-hand side, there is the current design. Some comments were made about building height concerns around the 5th story, and this is intended to point out that, in fact, the previous building was slightly higher than this building. It was 2 feet higher, just because of the style of the roof. So with the flat roof configuration, we're actually slightly lower in overall height, in maximum height, than the other building. So the other building was 59 feet to the peak. Our building is 57 feet. So I think that the concerns, there were a number of concerns raised, and this is intended to illustrate that. Although the building has more units to offer, it actually doesn't have any greater building height. We had 2 open houses, which I think went, generally speaking, very successfully. There were a number of comments made and concerns raised, which I think they were all included in packages to council. I think we've talked a little bit about height. The traffic study, I think, did a very solid job of responding to the concerns that might have been raised by residents about speeding on that road, and it appears that there is no reason to be overly concerned about doing mitigation of the speed on that road based on their report. So I think that was good. Height and density, I think we can say that although the building is got an extra story and it has more usable space, it's actually not actually any higher than the previous building. So yeah, I think we think there's a lot of benefits to this project. We think it's going to add a lot to the housing choices in the town of Comox, and we look forward to your support.
Thank you for your presentation. Any questions at this time from members of council? Councilor Swift.
Thank you. It looks good, and I look forward to seeing it. Could you just speak to the parking allowance and how much you've allowed? Is it per unit, or is it visitor parking?
So the parking is per bylaw. So there's one parking space per unit, and 0.1 visitor spaces per unit. So there's 45 units, so there's 45 parking spaces, and there's 5 visitor parking spaces for a total of 50.
Any other questions? Councillor Arnott?
Yeah, I agree with the council spoke to. That's very nice. Is there an age limitation on this, or can anybody? It's a condo. Can anybody buy into it, or you have to be a senior, 55 and over? How is it?
There's no age limitation.
As long as you got the money for it, you're good to go.
That is true.
Perfect. Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing Councillor McKenna. Councillor McKenna, you have a
Yes,
question?
thank you for the presentation, and the view here looks very nice. I'm hearing from the community, as you know, from the public meetings as well, it's that dilemma of looking at 0.5% vacancy rate in our community and welcoming new choices for residents versus the height of the building and the ambience of the neighborhood. And it's an interesting dilemma when you have to make these decisions. I was pleased to see that you, in the way that you responded to concerns, and hopefully that will continue in details as you go along. Maybe if you want to make any further comments on that.
Sure. I mean, I think that we are at a point where hopefully we're very comfortable that the building, for one thing, is going to fit into the neighborhood. I drove through again today and down that street, and I think some of the key features, it's not about whether it's a flat roof or a little bit of peaky roof. Most of these buildings are actually flat roof buildings. They just have a little decorative roof element here and there to make it look, you know, a little different or a little more traditional, if you want to call that. So I think the most important thing to fit in is that the building scale is similar, and I think we're very similar to the four-story buildings that are already in this community. And the use of the materials. I feel that the use of those strong timber posts and things, I think that's really going to resonate well with the community. So I feel that part is pretty solid. And going forward, yes, I mean, absolutely, we're going to continue to listen to the community, but at the same time, we want to make sure we can bring an effective and economical project to market.
More important to me, if I could add, is that some of the indirect consequences of going from 4 to 5 stories, things like shading and traffic concerns and that. And I'm just hopeful that that's publicly addressed in your public relations and your dealings with concerns about that, so that it's clear in the community that they have been considered.
That's fair. I mean, I think the community often raises concerns because that's exactly what they are. They're concerns. And I believe that the proponent has, through the traffic report, shown that there is actually no legitimate reason to be concerned other than the fact that everybody is a little bit nervous about change. And I think with the extra story, we've shown that, as you say, the height issue is mitigated as well as the shadow issue. How that gets communicated to the public is a good question. There will be a public hearing in a few weeks, so people will be able to speak their mind there, and if we need to respond at that time, we will.
All right, thank you. Your matter will come up for consideration later in the meeting.
Thanks.
We'll move on with minutes of meetings for approval. We have the council meeting of May 2nd.
Move. Second.
On approval, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Committee of the whole meeting minutes for receipt of May 9th.
Move receipt.
Second. Received. All those in favor? Motion's carried. And we had one recommendation regarding the Comox Valley Rocks for Kids, that the facility booking fees be waived or reimbursed. Sorry.
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. We have the special council meeting minutes of May 9th for approval.
Move. Second.
On approval, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. All right, move on to manager report for receipt.
Move receipt.
Second.
Receipt then, all those in favor? Motion is carried. And are there any updates, CEO, for any of these items?
The modification of the Macline Trust, we just heard this afternoon that there were negotiations ongoing to see if the Macline Society would accept intervenor status rather than continue with their application for standing. which was adjourned at the April 16th hearing. The lawyer advises that they're choosing not to accept intervenor status, and so the arguments for hearing the standing application in that claim will continue. It was, so the May 28th date that I had mentioned previously was to consider the main application to modify the trust. So that has now been postponed, and the standing application, which has to be considered before the same judge, was going July 3rd, the week of, but we found out the Attorney General's lawyer is away. So we don't know at this time when it will be going back before the court, and when we find out, I will let you know.
Why wouldn't they deal with the standing matter on the 28th?
I believe that they still need to decide whether, because it's not the same judge at the 28th.
I see.
That's what it is.
Okay, it's dragging on a bit, but we'll deal with that when we know. Let us know, of course, when you do hear this. All right, so anything else on the manager's report? The council has any questions, comments on it? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is regional district meeting minutes, various board meetings for receipt.
Move receipt.
Second.
Receipt of all those minutes. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Under bylaws, we're looking for adoption of the procedure bylaw amendments.
I'll move that.
Second.
On adoption, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Under new business, we'll move to development variance permit application, 600 Pritchard Road. The owners are here for any questions that you may have. Staff are recommending that the permit be issued subject to the conditions listed in the report.
Move.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. You're done.
I'll just say it what you want.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll move on to the variance permit application, DEP 15-17-5, and the planner indicated yet a presentation. And it is customary for the planner's presentation to not exceed 2 minutes. So,
We got a new planner or what?
yeah, that's right. It's just a new rule on a hot night.
Yeah.
So, presentation on the development variance permit at the southwest corner of Guthrie and Lazo Roads. Is this right? Yes. So, the concerns expressed in the recent submissions are in regards to the road standards and parking implications. So, I want to address that in this presentation. There's also a report that was just handed out to members of council and distributed to public. Anybody who didn't get a copy of the report, please see the planning department afterwards. We'll have to make that available to you. So this is the proposed lot layout. It is proposed, it would, the approval of that would rest with the approving officer, so it's a concept plan. Right now, as you can see, it's got 1, 2, 3, and there's a 4th parking stall being proposed, and I'll get into a little bit more details on that. When you're looking at these kind of parking stalls, you have to remember that there's certain regulations that are in effect, namely a 6-meter offset to any intersection, so that would affect this side on Beckton Drive T. It would also affect both of these sides on the lane intersection. There's also a requirement for a 2-meter separation from driveways, hence. Well, it looks like a lot of room to get another one in here. There's room for another parking space there or there, and it's even smaller. So I just want to bring that forward to your attention. I'll refer back to this as I get into the details. The primary point I want to make out is Beckton Drive. I'm talking now between Knoll and the 90-degree bend to the east. So there are a total of 14 lots fronting that section of Beckton Drive, including the 3 corner lots. And the proposed development site, they are different both in road cross sections. They are also substantially different in terms of the development itself. In terms of the cross sections, with the recent direction from council, what you've got on Beckton Drive is you've got a 7.2 meter asphalt width. That will result in parking, 7 on-street parking stalls. Those will have a width of 2.4. Drive aisles will be reduced to 2.4 meters. In contrast, the proposed development would have drive aisles at the full 3-meter widths, and then you'd have boulevard parking at 2.4. So there's actually more asphalt width where there's parking in the proposed development as opposed to on Beckton Drive. There's also a large difference in the actual zoning itself. As I mentioned, we've got 14 lots on Beckton Drive. We've got 9 proposed under the development. In short, the lots on Beckton Drive are smaller and they have a narrower frontage. They also have 8 of the 14 lots do not have road access for driveways, rather they're restricted to lane access. In contrast, you're looking at 9 lots. Each lot would have a double driveway access provided, and that's in a let-down curve. And you have a parcel size of 650 to 730, 20-meter frontages. We mentioned the asphalt difference. So you've got 7 in terms of on Beckton Drive, on-street parking versus the 4 proposed. Parking ratios, so you're looking at 50% in relation to Beckton Drive, and you're looking at 44% in relation to the new cul-de-sac. But the new cul-de-sac would have a substantial amount of on-site parking. So before I go to, so right now what's proposed, you have a total of 40 on-site parking spaces. So each one has got a double driveway. So we've got 7 of the 9 lots have 2 parking stalls on each lot in the driveway. Standard right now in terms of home construction is a double car garage. So that would result in 4 parking stalls on each lot. Because of the road configuration, the reduced road widths right here, seeing that results, and that asphalt loss results in actually both of these lots having 4 driveway parking spaces. So each lot actually has 6.
Could I ask a question about the Beckton Drive?
No, ma'am, you can't. This is a presentation to council.
Oh, okay, sorry.
You can ask the planner afterwards.
Okay, will do.
If that access, the cul-de-sac were built out to the 9 meters wide, you'd only have 7 on-street parking spaces. And you would actually, because of the increased asphalt width, those 2 lots on the south side that have 4 in the driveway each would lose the 4. They drop down to 2. Right? So in contrast, even under the proposed reduction, if we did maximum amount of pull-out parking, we could also get 7. So essentially it's a no loss. It's a zero sum, actually it's a loss because you're losing 4 on-street parking spaces if we go to the standard 9-meter wide road. One of the reasons why we're looking at 4 instead of 7 in the park out. Purpose here is, in terms of the reduced road width, is first off we get full travel lanes, so people don't have to car jockey, so we get 2 3-meter wide travel lanes. It also reduces the appearance of the road width by having just the boulevard parking as opposed to the asphalt. Helps to keep the speeds down. Provides a higher amenity in terms of you have a lot more area for boulevard plantings and street trees, so in terms of beautification. So if we're looking at here, if we try to put additional, and we could, theoretically put additional parking space here and here, now all of a sudden you're flaring out this entranceway to, on that. 8.4 plus 2.4 is 10.8. That's a really wide section of asphalt as you're first coming in. Here, if you put in another one at this point, you essentially lose any boulevard treatment from here to this point. Because what's happening is you've got the driveway drops flaring in. So you expand this pull-out starts to bleed into the driveway drops. There's no point in doing a boulevard at that point because it's just really small. I mean, you might be able to squeeze in a tree cell, but that's about it. And as noted before, here you just do not have legal parking currently in terms of expanding it. So given that we're looking at 44% on-street parking. Relative to the number of lots, we're looking at an addition of 40 on-site parking spaces for 9 lots. Also, we take a look at, it's not showing up on here, but it's in the report. We've been doing this design now on Dakota Place, which is nearing end of construction in terms of build-out, but it's not a full build-out. Forester, as you know, is only now getting building permits. So one of the questions often asked is, well, what happens when we actually have the homeowners living there? So in comparison, when we did Rob from Pritchard to Church, so that's servicing 50 lots. It has 2 drive aisles with pull-out parking only on one side, and we actually have 13 vehicle parking spaces, so that's down to 26%. We anticipate that really the actual demand in our neighborhoods right now is below 30%, a high would be 30%, and we have not received any complaints over a lack of parking in that section of the road.
All right. Any questions for our planner?
I have a question regarding trees, and it's not particularly addressed to this development, but in general, I know we have a policy of trying to retain mature trees.
Yes.
And there's been tree studies done to indicate which ones are healthy and so on. But over time, does the town have any liability if those mature trees can fall?
No.
No?
So what the mature trees, there's a number of precautions that occur. One is at this stage, there's an arborist that takes a look at what is diseased. The arborist also takes a look at if the trees that are proposed to be removed, if there's going to be any wind throw. Typically, and in this case, the arborist will also then say, this is all very nice and good, but after construction, they want to do a reassessment in case anything was damaged. And that's built into the tree protection covenant. It's built into the proposed approvals, conditions for approval into this. The covenants themselves have an out for removing of diseased trees and an allowance for emergency situations, and it just requires that they be replanted. So,
I guess what I was thinking of is an unpredictable event. You know, we have a big windstorm all of a sudden and a tree comes down that we want it to be retained. But we don't have any liability.
There's no liability for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, the motion before you for consideration is...
Yes, but it was on the parking on Vector.
You'll have to talk to the planner. This relates to the variance permit. For this particular thing, you can certainly ask a question after the meeting. So we were looking for a motion for the development variance permit to be issued.
Second.
That be subject to the conditions of the report. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. All right, we'll move on to the next item, which the planner also has a presentation for. It's the rezoning application for 1700 Balmoral.
He didn't listen to you on the 2 minutes.
No, he only gets 1 minute.
Yeah.
I got a timer on my...
my watch runs differently. Thank you very much. This is in regards to 1700 Balmoral. It's got a rezoning and development permit. The presentation is broken down into 8 sections. First, an application summary, then a location and land use context, OCP amenity for the 5th story, the OCP sustainability implications, development permit area guidelines implications, zoning implications, restrictive covenant discharge. 2 are proposed to be discharged from the site, and comments on the noted concerns regarding traffic volumes and speed. Application summary. So what's before you today is a 5-story, 45-unit apartment building. It has underground parking. That underground parking contains the 50 vehicle parking spaces. It also contains some Class 1 and all Class 2 bicycle parking. That's the bike rooms, Class 2. It has electrical scooter parking with recharge facilities in the underground parking area. In addition, the garbage recycling compound is in the underground parking. I'll get into that a little bit later. The existing single-family house on the subject property will be demolished. 2 restrictive covenants relating to previous proposed apartment building, which was 4 stories, which did not proceed, are proposed to be discharged. So, the property, I believe, but it's this corner of Brown right here. It's bounded on the north by Comox Golf Course, on the west by Comox Golf Course. The east is an existing apartment building. To the south is Comox Mall, and then just to the southeast is a congregate care facility. And for all intents and purposes, that appears from the outside of the apartment building as well. The OCP has a policy that allows for construction in excess of 4 stories on the subject property, subject to the provision of satisfactory amenities. Staff has interpreted that as amenities over and above the standard amenities that we seek at time of rezoning. It's within development permit area number 3, general multifamily, and it's zone CE7. In regards to the amenity for exceeding 4 stories, the applicants proposed a $25,000 contribution, and that's for the provision of 1 or more of the following public amenities: public electrical charging stations within the downtown area, capital improvements at Anderton Park, such as playground enhancement, site furnishings, including shade structure. Electric charging is becoming more of an issue. We do sometimes occasionally run into more than one person trying to use our charger at Town Hall. That's in addition to the town car. So it seems to be gaining more and more popularity. Sustainability implications. Okay, 45 units are on Balmoral. Balmoral is a proposed major bike route, so nice amenity provision for that. It's also on a proposed bus route that would be servicing the new Transit Exchange at Port Augusta, just north of Comox Avenue. And it's immediately adjacent to the downtown with its vast array of both retail and service businesses. So not only would the proposed residents benefit from proximity to that, but of course in terms of the economic vitality and the general vitality and activity of the downtown, there would be benefit to the downtown as well. It would be mutual benefit. 18,600 is proposed in affordable housing contributions. That will be going to the reserve fund for provision of affordable housing. The applicant proposed to build green and silver construction. Our standard that we seek as an amenity at time of rezoning is bronze. So this is 1 level higher. That would correspond to BC Energy Code Step 2. 10% of the units would be adaptable. There'd be sound attenuation in the units to meet CNC guidelines for residential construction. 5 220-volt outlets would be provided for vehicles and the parkade. And there would also be a new tree retention covenant affecting the proposed trees to be retained and the new plantings. A few points I just want to make in regards to the development permit area guidelines. First, in regards to the guidelines regarding compatibility with surrounding development. This is actually located within an established multifamily neighborhood. So as I noted, we have 2 apartment buildings, one immediately adjacent to the east and then to the southeast. The east section of the proposed building is a 17-meter front setback. That's comparable to the existing apartment building to the east, which has a 14-meter setback. There are no balconies proposed along the east elevation. As part of the initial pre-application consultation, there was some concern from people in the existing apartments in terms of impact on their privacy. Likewise, there's also proposing to plant 6 deciduous trees along the east lot line of the subject property to augment the screening of the existing Douglas fir trees on the neighboring properties. And that would also allow for some sunlight penetration along that east elevation of the apartment to the east during the winter months. In regards to DP guidelines focused on reducing building mass and the appearance of building height as viewed from the street, several architectural features are built into the proposal. Staggered front elevation. The western third has a front setback of 7 meters, and then you go to the aforementioned 17 meters for the eastern 2/3 of the proposed building. The 5th story is setback from the 4-story frontage, and that varies from 9 to 4.5 meters. So again, that starts cutting off your viewing angle as viewed from a pedestrian from the street in terms of how much of that building you're actually going to see. And there's extensive glazing, heavy timber elements, and metal trim to provide visual interest and focal points. DP guidelines stating existing mature trees should be retained wherever possible. The following are proposed for retention. We have 2 trees within the front yard, a red oak and a black locust, 3-stem Douglas fir group, 110 diameter Douglas fir on the north property line, and approximately a 12-meter long cedar hedge along the west property line. Zoning implications is the existing zone, CD7, allows a 4-story apartment building with a maximum height of 18 meters. The proposed zone, CD7.1, allows a 5-story apartment building with a maximum height of 19 meters. As the architect noted, the proposed building height is really at 17.8 meters. But it's common practice to allow for a fudge factor or a contingency factor when you're starting to get buildings close in height. Because there's changes that can occur on site during construction, errors and things like surveying. Also, as noted, Emterra, under the existing design, has a problem in terms of servicing the underground garbage compound. One of the proposed solutions is to increase the vertical height of the parkade access. That may result in an adjustment in building height to achieve that. And so, hence the 19 meters proposed in the zone. Restrictive covenant discharge. First covenant required the relocation within the subject property of the existing historical relocation within the subject property of the existing historical single-family building and its conversion into an amenity space for future residents. That building is now proposed to be removed. Retention of 3 trees within the front yard. One of those trees has fallen, so there's 2 trees. Those are still proposed to be retained, and there's a new tree protection covenant. In regards to the other covenant, it prohibited the parking or storing on the subject property of any oversized vehicles, and that relates to a previous parking requirement wherein developers had to provide parking for oversized vehicles or register a covenant. That requirement for the provision of oversized vehicles no longer exists. Traffic volumes and speeds. So in regards to traffic volumes, Balmoral is actually a minor collector road classification in the official community plan. So that's this section of Balmoral right here. That is actually designed to connect neighborhoods to arterial roads, so it's not a local road. Its design capacity is for between 1,000 and 5,000 vehicles per day. It's operating well within that capacity and has room for additional growth because it's operating at 3,600 vehicles per day. In terms of speed, so there was a traffic study done that monitored vehicle speed, traffic counts. So analyzing the 85th percentile indicated that there is not a speeding concern that would warrant any traffic calming or police enforcement at this time. One thing to note is that as we get more downtown residential and commercial development, we'll see an increase on the demand for on-street parking. We'll also see an increase in transit usage and pedestrian activity. And those will bring, as side effects, traffic calming abilities. So essentially, as it builds up, the traffic will actually probably get slower. With that, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Right, thank you for your presentation. Questions from members of the council? Seeing none, staff are recommending that we give consideration of first and second reading of the zoning bylaw amendment.
I'll move that.
Second.
Any questions at first and second reading? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And for the phased development agreement bylaw, first and second reading?
Move. Second.
All right, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. finding that a public hearing in respect to these bylaws and the discharge of the 2 covenants be scheduled for June 6th at the Stair House, 7 p.m. The staff be instructed to publish the requisite notices as required by the Local Government Act.
I'll move that.
This is going to be the second public hearing we're having that night. I
No, it's
believe.
the only one.
It's just the only one? But I'm wondering, because you and I are both going to be in Halifax, is it a possibility to have this moved to next week, or is time of the essence here? Yeah, I would like to hear from people, but I don't want to hold the process up.
Well, first of all, yeah, that's a good question about timing. But secondly, the fact that you're not in attendance at the public hearing isn't
No.
critical in the sense that you will be able to receive the minutes and so on. But timing, I see you.
Now, while this is an available opportunity for us, and unless otherwise directed by council, we try and bring these applications forward as efficiently as we can.
Yeah, fair enough.
As a council member, you are still entitled and eligible to vote on the application, as long as you get a report and read the minutes and consider yourself fully aware of the issues.
Thank you.
Anything further then? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. All right, so a public hearing on that is June 6th, the Stair House, 7 p.m. And notices will be published in the usual fashion. All right, we'll move on to correspondence. We have the usual letter regarding the Highland Track. Yeah, the granting of support and permission.
Sure. Second that.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. We also have a letter from Bobby Howard Muir regarding a new Boomer ride, which is being called Camp Boomer. It's
I'll go with that.
event on June 16th, and motion to approve on usual considerations.
Yep.
Any issues, CEO, with that one?
No.
We have to provide insurance. And,
Yep. And emergency services really notified of the event.
yeah. All right. So all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. That is in replacement of the Boomer ride that used to go from Courtney's here 20 to 2 days. That will be here. All right. And then we have letters regarding DDP 17.5 for receipts.
Move receipt.
And on that one, I understand that you've got his questions answered. So, I mean, in terms of redoing Lazo Road, that is in our financial plan to look at the greenways. We'll send a suitable response. All those in favor? Motion is carried. And then lastly, the letter of support for DVP 18-2, which has been granted.
Move receipt.
All those in favor? Motion is carried. No other late items of delegation. Reports from members of council. We'll start with Councilor McKinnon.
Yes, Your Worship. Busy couple of weeks. You and I both attended the Walk for Alzheimer's last Sunday. Good turnout in the community. A couple of councillors has joined myself in going to a citizens' public meeting called Comox Tomorrow, where the Mayor of Cumberland spoke, and it was an interesting meeting. Attended the Youth Resource Fair at Glacier View. Many support agencies for families in the Comox Valley were on display, and it was a good turnout as well. Attended the Liz Stubbs Garden opening at the Philburg on this past weekend. And just finally, that so council does know is that Patty Fletcher and I have taken the first steps in regards to the Town of Comox Ray Crosley Awards, and contacted the schools for nominees and fine arts and community coaching groups if there's any worthy nominees to come forward for nomination. Then my understanding, it comes to council for consideration.
Fair enough. Any time frame for that?
Sorry, one last item.
Is there any time frame for those?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
When are you considering the time frame for that?
The
Ray Crosley, like in terms of scheduling.
The deadline for schools is this coming Monday. I have the community groups and other groups same. So.
All right, so we'll hear more on that in June. Is that what you're telling us?
Yes.
Thank you. And carry on.
Yes, I wanted to let council know that I took the initiative to to go to the Comox Museum and ask about some way of acknowledging past and present Olympians in our community, following up on our discussion here as council, and they've invited me to come back tomorrow to speak to them about an idea of honoring Olympians that lived in Comox when they were Olympians, not just medal winners, but Olympians, and I'll report back from that meeting to see if there's any interest.
Sure. Did you talk to the Sports Commission as well?
I went to the Sports Center yesterday, as a matter of fact, but not the Sport Commission, and left a message with Jen Seaton doing that.
Okay, great.
You might actually want to talk to Economic Development. They did something like this back when the Olympics were here, so they can probably help you out in a big way on that.
I think the museum wants for long-term recognition a display that might be a long-standing display there.
Sure.
So that.
All right, one more to follow on that. Councillor Grant.
Sure. So I attended the regional district meeting yesterday, and that was the sewer meeting. Most of that was in camera, so I will tell you that I was there. There'll be more to follow on that. On the water, we also had a water commission meeting, and the biggest part of that was that they brought a group of experts in from across the country to have a look at our plan and make sure that we were doing it. Really, we were looking at more efficiencies and how to save money. Probably the biggest thing that came out of that was a recommendation by that group to shorten the pipe into the lake. We had always kind of thought that it should go right to the bottom. When you looked at it, the water quality doesn't change much if you bring it up, and you can save quite a bit of money by doing that. So that's going to be incorporated into the new plan. Also, they thought that we needed more contingency, which works nicely because we just saved some money, so we can put it into contingency. So that's what's going to happen. I did ask about grant funding and if we'd ever heard anything yet, and really expressed our frustration in the fact that we get forced to put a water plant in, but they won't fess up and tell us how much money or if we can get any money. So that has been brought up by the regional district a couple of times and said, it's just a really unfair process the way you're doing it. Whether that has any weight or not, but it is quite frustrating. Sports Commission meeting, new fees and charges for the Sports Center and also for the fairground, and we'll be getting a new chiller for Rink 2 and a new brine machine for Rink 1, which should help improve the ice quality. We also had committee of the whole meeting and then regular council meeting, and most all of those were also in camera, so that's my report.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott.
Yeah, just briefly, I did have an audit today's meeting, and Sue Woods and John Mang, they do have that down to the side, so it was a quick meeting. Looks like another good event that will be coming up here in the summer. I too, along with Councillor McKinnon and Councillor Grant, attended the Comox Tomorrow group, who had a meeting at the golf course, and so it was about Comox Tomorrow. They had invited the mayor of Cumberland to speak about that. One of the interesting comments that I did hear of that, it was a tail end, there was a speaker, and a fellow had recently moved over from Alberta. I felt that Comox could be doing much better. He's lived here for 3 years. I would say in 3 years, Comox has done a lot. We're out of debt. We've got a new revitalized mall. We've got some exciting things happening down at the marina. In my terms on council, I would think the last 3 years have probably been the best 3 years for my 7 years. So it's, we all have, as we moved into election season, we all have our opinions in that, but I do say that our staff and our council have done a great job, and I just want to say that Comox has done the best it could in the last 3 years.
Right.
No,
You could say the best is yet to come, but I think
somebody's had that.
Somebody
Yeah.
actually tried that one.
It's worked. Though.
It worked.
I like progress without change.
Yeah.
Councillor Swift.
Okay, I attended that Citizens Forum. It was kind of interesting to see who was there and how much interest there was. I also attended, in the place of the mayor, the Battle of the Atlantic, which took place down at the marina. And as always, it was a a good ceremony. There were some problems with boaters, and so I think we need to look at, pay some attention to perhaps closing the marina for a short while during that event so that we don't have boats coming in and out and whatnot. So we need to take a look at that. I went to the Sewage Commission yesterday, and I attended the Local Heroes Awards, which took place at the fire department last week. And I must say our fire department does a really amazing job of transforming their fire hall. So that was great. And last but not least, Liz Stubbs' cutting garden, ribbon cutting for the cutting garden at Philburg, which is looking great. And that's my report.
Thanks, Dad. I forgot to tell you guys about I've had several meetings with the Rotary Club and town regarding the pickleball courts. We are having one more meeting tomorrow. Hopefully that will finalize most everything we need to do. And as far as I know, we're going to be pretty close on schedule, if not on schedule.
Yeah.
Can I say that? Yeah. So there's been a few little changes and things that have had gone as is the norm, but we are on track and moving forward.
Excellent. All right. I'll mention that as well. Brett Myers gave a presentation at Rotary yesterday about, I think you were at the regional district. I was the guest speaker there at Rotary to give a presentation on the town of Comox and all the things that have been done and are going to be done. It was well received. A copy of that presentation will be circulated to you. Thank you to Twyla for putting that together with me. And they had the Walk with Your Dock event at Marina Park last Thursday. And I brought my dog, and she had a great time with all the other people and their dogs walking. Quite a walk all the way around downtown. And showed how much interest there is in just walking around town. Alzheimer's Walk, speaking of that, I was there to provide a few remarks. And then I attended the Night of Wonders event at the Rotary next door. Don Don was the beneficiary of that event, attended and emceed by our very busy John Mang and Sue Wood, who do a lot of work in the community. And then lastly, back on the 4th of May, I attended the film shooting, the TV film shooting at the old hospital, and got to see them film the scene. It was quite powerful. And it was neat to see the hospital being used for that event. And they were here only 4.5 days, but they made really good use of the facility, and you may see more of that activity in the future.
Did you pass the audition?
No, I didn't. I stood quietly in the background. I had enough medical procedures in the last week, so I didn't want any more. So, media questions. Any?
Just actually clarification. I know the architect mentioned in his presentation for the Balmoral development, you mentioned the word apartments, but I just wanted to clarify that it is condos for purchase?
Correct. Yes.
Rentals, okay.
Some places those words are used interchangeably.
Yeah. Just clarify.
Questions for council from members of the public? If your question is for staff, you can certainly ask that after.
Yes, I will.
Okay. All right, so seeing no further items coming before the agenda tonight, we'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Those in favor? Meeting adjourned.